All right. Yay, Flight Science Orientation, November 30th, 2017. Ms. Cortez has already briefed us quite a bit about financial aid. Thank you very much for coming this evening. And also Ms. Silva, our academic counselor for the degree program, has already given her briefing. Thank you very much for coming here this evening. Just really fast, if you could do something like this. My name is John Johnson. I was in the United States Air Force. I'm not using VA benefits. I'm not going to be in this program because I already have all my pilot certificates. I grew up in Reedley, California, and learned how to fly and be an airplane mechanic in Reedley. And I want to be part of the flight science program. I just want to run the program instead of be in it. Could you do something like that really fast? 1 minute. Architect, go. Yes, yeah. You want to be a pilot when you grow up? So you're going to grow up, huh? Okay, thanks. Nice. Awesome. Cool. Thanks. Cool. Thank you very much. Okay, so show of hands. How many people think they're going to use VA benefits to pay for this program? 1, 2, 3. People are not going to use VA benefits to pay for this program. 2. Okay, thank you. All right, so who does not have my phone number and my email address? Okay, great. So I'm not going to worry about giving it to you at the moment. So if you have questions as we go along, interrupt me. That moment when you have the question, that is the time to ask me, please. Okay. So if you want to fly airplanes in the United States or any other flying machine and take flying lessons, the Transportation Security Administration, a portion of Department of Homeland Security, said you have to do one of two things. Prove that you are a U.S. citizen. And there's 2 ways to do that. You're going to have to show your flight instructor your original birth certificate and a government-issued photo ID, such as a valid driver's license or a valid passport. Is there anyone, if you're not a U.S. citizen, you have to go online to the TSA and apply to get eligible to flight train in the United States. So if you don't know where your original birth certificate is, then you need to start looking, because you can't take a flying lesson that very first in an airplane until you do that. And your first lesson in this program is usually the Monday or Tuesday of the 3rd week of the semester. The way it usually works is the first 2 weeks you don't fly, the last day to drop and get a refund goes past. You've done a lot of simulator flying that first 2 weeks, but that 3rd week your flying's got to kick in. So I'm asking people to bring those documents in on the first day of school. Medical certificate. Now you don't actually have to have the medical certificate until the end of the first semester, but I don't want anybody to spend their VA benefits or spend their money on that flight course unless you're going to be patient. And to pass that first flight course, you have to stow the plane and to certificate from the FAA in your possession. Now there's 3 medical certificates: first class, second class, and third class. If you think you want to be an airline pilot, the aircraft commander has to have a first class medical. They decide that's what I want to make sure I can pass it. Commercial pilot and you're never fly for an airline, then you only need a crop dust department. You want to fly a business jet, you only need a second class. If you're never flying, you're training with just a third class medical, and you can earn your commercial pilot certificate with it, and you can get your flight instructor certificate, but you can't get paid to be a pilot. I highly recommend everybody get at least a second class, and if you're considering being an airline pilot, get a first class medical. So you can go to www.faa.gov and find the place. If you go to www.faa.gov, and there'll be a search in there, and you can search for AME, and AME stands for Aviation Medical Examiner, and you can search by location. You can type in Fresno, or you could send me an email, because I cranked out a list of the designated medical examiners within the central San Joaquin Valley. So you're also welcome to just send me an email, and I'll send you a list. The cost is generally between $125 and $200. The first class, I've never got a first class. Class, they have to do an EKG on you if you're a certain age. Any questions about a medical certificate? All right. I love VA benefits, and I think if you're using VA benefits, you're going to be really happy about it. But the thing about VA benefits is if you drop in the middle of a semester, then there's going to be an issue about how much money the VA's paid you for your housing allowance and how much of it they're going to want back. Go into, because I'm not an expert, I know if you drop your classes in the middle of the semester and you're using VA benefits, then there's going to be some significant issues that you're going to have to deal with. So you ought to come and talk to me, not because I'm going to tell you what to do about your VA benefits. I'm going to tell you what are your options inside the flight training program. But before you drop, I'm highly going to recommend that you see that your academic counselor, and that you see the person you've been working with in financial aid. If you have any financial aid, you need to talk to them before you drop classes and say, I am considering dropping classes. How's that going to impact my financial aid? And if someone's using VA benefits, is that also, for now it's still Ms. Cortez. So if it's VA benefits, you're also, so there it is. So generally speaking, I'm going to suggest people keep going to classes even if you think you're going to drop, but talk to these three people, including yourself, before you drop. Because once you drop, you can't change your mind. All right. Every time I've ever told anybody about VA benefits, they only pay for a course twice. If you've already taken it and you've passed it with a passing grade, they won't pay for it anymore. But if you take a course and you don't pass it the first time, they'll pay for it a second time, but never a third. Not that I want you to have to take it a second time. I'm just giving you a warning. Generally speaking, it's not that you have to get a C in every course. If you do get a C in every class you take in college, then you'll never have to worry about the VA putting you on probation and not paying you for the next semester. You don't have to get a C in every course. I'm not saying that. I'm saying if you do get at least a C, you'll never have to. All right. There might be delays in getting your housing allowance. The BAH stands for Basic Allowance for Housing. So what you want to do is go online, apply at Reedley College, and go to the financial aid office and line up all your VA benefits as soon as you can. But be prepared if the VA doesn't kick in that housing allowance as fast as you're still going to have to pay your bills. Same thing for housing allowance between terms. If you're not working and you're living off of your housing allowance, and let's say there's a 3-week gap in there for Christmas break, you're going to end up not getting a housing allowance for that 3 weeks. So you need to be thinking about how are you going to fund your living expenses between the semesters when the housing allowance is going up. If you don't take a full load, that is, you don't take 12 credits, if you take less than that, your housing allowance is going to be less. So you need to think about, do I want to take 10 credits and get less housing allowance, but I can do better on my classes? Or do you want to take 12 credits so you get your full housing allowance. And that's something that you would want to talk to Ms. Cortez about, how many credits you take and how much housing allowance you're going to get. The VA has a thing about you going to So you're going to be a lot happier if you go to class, go to class, go to class. All right. Of course, I'm reiterating what Ms. Cortez said. Apply for financial aid as soon as you can. Is that the right website? Okay, great. And that's in your paperwork. Great. And there's a possibility of grants. Ms. Cortez talked about loans. And it's either you or Ms. Jessica Silva. This is Maria Silva. Jessica Silva works with Ms. Cortez in the financial aid office, and I have her. Is that the right extension? 30. Okay, sweet. But that information is in your financial aid, the nice colored airplane brochure that you got. Okay, great. All right. So if you're going to take class this semester, I highly encourage you to make an appointment to see Ms. Silva. She'll be telling you Flight 101 and 105 and 102. Plus any general education courses that you discuss to help you work toward your degree. Now, if you're federal financial aid, you'll need to talk about how many credits do you need to take financial aid benefits. So that's a discussion you need to have financial aid and coordinate that with Ms. Silva. Generally, if you take at least 12 credits, you get more financial aid, but there may be reasons, and Ms. Silva might have some reasons for you to take more. So that's a conversation you need to have with financial aid and with Ms. Silva. But these three classes right here, 101, that's ground school. It's going to be Monday through Thursday from 8 to 8. Have that Flight 105, that's 1 credit, so that's 5 credits. And then Flight 102, that's 2 credits. That's 7 credits. So if you need to take 12 credits to get for financial aid reasons or to pursue the degree full time, then that means you'll need to take at least 5 more credits. Does anybody have any questions there? If that first semester you're busy and you decide you're not going to take any gen ed and you want to take the least amount of credit, you just need to take those first 2, Flight 101 and the flight lab. Any questions about? Yes. It's not going to be offered in the spring. Thank you for asking. The sheet I just passed out, you notice there's the blue line ran through 113. It's going to be offered. And of course, we already talked about adding gen ed classes. All right, go to class, go to class, go to class, go to class. How many people in here have taken a written test? Only one person? Great, very good. All right, how many people in here have taken an oral exam where you sit down and somebody quizzed? How long was your longest? Hours. What did you do that for? Tony is a helicopter pilot, so you had one oral exam that took 4 hours. That was your flight. No, it was your pilot. Okay, that's a long. Well, okay, hours or all day. I don't know the difference. Okay. All right, it took you all day to do the whole thing, yeah. So you can expect more, an hour, or correction, 2 or 3 or 4 hours of an oral exam when you go up for your driving. What percentage, Tony, did you have to get correct? And car, you get the booklet, you try to read the book 3 times, you take the test, you got 75% correct, go woohoo. 6 months later, you turn 16, you've been driving with your folks, you go get with a driving examiner, they look at your lights, they look at the seat belts, they say don't turn on the radio, you get in the car, they say turn left, turn right, parallel park. But you didn't sit down with them for 2, 3, 4 hours and have them verbally ask you questions about driving, how to drive a car and how to drive safely. That's the way it works with flying, and I'm not trying to scare you. I'm just trying to tell you that ground school, you need all of that knowledge in your head so that when you sit down with your partner on the flying test, you can all those wonderful answers. And getting a 70% correct in a college class generally gets you a C, but a 70% correct on the oral exam on your check ride gets you an F. Now, if somebody asks me, because most of the examiners, they go, oh, you're having trouble with that one? I'm going to go get a cup of coffee. Once you look it up while I'm gone. And back in about 5 minutes. And let you do that once, maybe twice. Emergency procedures. Then it's pow, pow, pow. So when I say it's mandatory to go to class, the problem is if you don't go to class, there'll be something you miss, and you'll be very unhappy in your flying class. So go to class, go to class, go to class. There's going to be a lot of graded items in class. You're going to need to go to class throughout the semester. I already talked about that. I have seen lots of students get silly. Mr. Johnson, I bought plane tickets. I'm not going to be here that week. Guess what the college is going to do? We're going to give you a 0 on all the graded activities in ground you didn't attend, and we're going to schedule you for flying, and you're going to miss those flights. Do not make travel during the scheduled semester, from the first day of the semester to the last day of finals. You've got to be available. The part of the problem is, what if the weather gets bad for 2 weeks? Anybody ever fog? It's these low clouds. They're near the ground. You try to drive through them. It's hard to see. Nobody's ever heard. One person's heard of that. Okay. In any case, the fog comes in for 2 weeks, you don't get a fly. Now with the fog lifts, and there's only 1 week left. Trip or flunk the class. So I'm letting you know, don't put yourself in that situation where you have to make that decision. Missing class, the worst of it is what I've really talked about. You're going to get not just lousy grades in class, but low test scores. And this one right here, the likelihood of unsatisfactory performance in particular on the oral exam on your flying test. Is it okay if I warn you about this stuff in advance? It's okay that I tell you today instead of 3 months into the semester? All right. So you're going to go to ground school in this room. There's also a computer lab just on the other side of this wall. So some of the ground schools will be in that room. There are some simulators. We're going to take a peek at them after I'm done talking because you'll be tired by then and you won't want to look at anything else. We'll look at some simulators there across the lab. I'll show you where that is. The flying lessons are going to be at JB Aeronautics at the Fresno Yosemite Airport. The Fresno Yosemite Airport. And you can type in JB Aeronautics, and this is their website. 48 years pilot training experience. That is Jim Brannon. That's where JB came from. This guy rocks. He's in charge of that flight school. Now, the way it works is Reedley College is renting airplanes from this flight school, just the airplanes. But you're going to go there, and we're hiring his instructors to be Reedley College instructors. So you're going to be hiring a Reedley College employee. Do it Mr. Brannon's way, and he knows what he's doing. Actually, 3 days before this current semester started, and he knows how to do things really, really well. So you're going to fly in their airplanes, but you're going to fly Reedley College employees, and we're going to be renting the airplanes. Of course, we're going to turn around, and you're going to pay us so we can rent the aircraft and pay for the instructors. But you're welcome to go to the JB Aeronautics website and see what that's going to be like. So that's at the Fresno Yosemite International Airport. I think it's International Airport. And Ms. Silver brought up a good point. You don't have to take your general education classes here. You can take them. The State Center Community College District offers them. You could take them out of Madera, Fresno City, Oakhurst. I don't know where else they get offered. All right. I'm not going to dive into the student code of conduct and stuff like that. The good news is, for me, if I catch you cheating, then the FAA says, kick you out of flying school. And so that's just what we're going to do. So we don't have to go over that right now. The worst thing I've ever seen a student do in the years, just so you know, I had a job I had before this for 8 years. This is what I did. I worked for the flight school, and we sold flight training to the colleges, but none of the colleges that we worked with had any aviation employees, so I ran a degree program for them. And granted, it's like 1 student out of 100, but we figured out really fast when they were lying to their flight instructor about why they couldn't show up. If you can't show up, just tell your instructor why. The last thing, let's put it this way. When you get through that 2 years of training, you want to get a job as a flight instructor? Because, phrase it, you want to get a job flying? That first job is going to be as a flight instructor. You think you're hired by JB or not? Or get hired by very likely. Wouldn't you like a reference from the program coordinator, or a letter of reference from your flight instructor, or a letter of reference from the owner of a flight school, Mr. Brannon? So think about what's more important. All right, a lot of people have been in the U.S. military, and if you're not, how many people have been in the U.S. military but you haven't gone to college? Okay, John, right? Okay, you don't have to call anybody sir or ma'am, but until they tell you otherwise, generally speaking, Mr. Johnson. And then let them decide if they want to say, yo, just call me Johnny, or something like that. Does that work for you? Okay. All right, the chain of command. If you haven't been in the U.S. military, chain of command is, if I don't like what my boss is doing, I'm going to go ahead and squeal on him. I mean, if I think that my supervisor, and I talk to them and it doesn't work, how can I help my supervisor do better? You might go see their supervisor. So this is the way it works. The first thing you do is, if you're taking a college class, even if it's not a flight course, go talk to your instructor. Go talk to your instructor and say, this doesn't feel right, this isn't working, how do we fix this? If you see your instructor and you still can't fix it, and it's a flight science course, then I want you to come see me. And say, I talked to my ground instructor, my flight instructor is not working the way I want, what can we do about it? And then I will see if I can fix it. If I can't fix it, then you go see my supervisor. His name is Dean Clark. And in fact, I'm going to give you his contact information right now. So you are the first humans on the planet to get a copy of the Flight Science Student Program Student Handbook. I want you to go to the inside page. It's got very light number 2 on it. On the inside cover, at the very top, it's got my name, my email address, and right underneath is Dean David Clark. So if you think I haven't improved the situation enough, you get to go see him. And then right underneath his name is the vice president and his phone number and email address. I don't expect you'll ever have to go over my head, but I want you to know that we're working really hard, and there is a process. Does anybody have any questions about that? All right, I want to talk about drugs and alcohol and how bad they are. Okay. You can drink alcohol as a pilot. You just can't drink alcohol and be under the influence of it when you're operating flying machines. We'll go into the details in your private ground school. But generally speaking, you can't have consumed alcohol within 8 hours. Your blood alcohol can never be above 0.04. And you can never be in what? You got to comply with all 3 of those, not just one. You got to comply with all 3 of those. I've actually seen student pilots take prescription drugs that belong to someone else. Anybody heard every phrase called opiates? Oxycodone, Oxycontin. You don't, and it doesn't have to just be the opiates. You don't get to eat prescriptions that were written for someone else. It's against federal law. So if you're going to fly machines, you need to not do that. You don't get to use illegal drugs according to federal law. I'm going to say that again. Federal law. In the state of California, there are many law enforcement attempt to arrest you. Very metaphoric here. You will be held accountable for it. They usually do things away from life. So, if that's a choice you need to make, I highly recommend you make it before you spend your money or your VA benefits on flight training. Oh, there it goes. There are companies, the college is not going to do it, but there are a lot of companies that have flying machines, and they will do driving record tests, and they will do criminal background checks. So if you have any questions about whether companies will hire you, I had a student one time. They got their pilot certificate. I can't remember if they got their next rating, and they got arrested for grand theft auto, and they were convicted, if I recall correctly. And about 6 months later, they called me up. Hey, Mr. Johnson, can I still be a pilot if I have a felony conviction? And I said, well, that's a really good question. Nobody's ever asked me that. But regardless of what the FAA says, probably no one's ever going to hire you. And he didn't call back. All right. Your Reedley College email is the college's official method of communication. Once you become a student, the college needs to contact you for email. So you're going to be contacted via your Reedley College email, so you're going to need to check that often. Oh, wait, every day. If you choose you want to have your Reedley College email forwarded to a different email account, that's up to you. Your flight schedule is ridiculously important. One of the top 3 things you need to know about succeeding in this flight training program is that scheduling your flights is not going to be as much fun as you would like. Well, Mr. Johnson, I'd read Mondays at 10 o'clock in the morning, and Wednesdays at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and every other Friday at 3:15. Is that going to work? The answer is no. It can't even be Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8. The weather changes, aircraft break, you get sick, your flight instructor gets sick. The weather gets bad, and then next week you got to fly whenever we can. So what's going to happen is on the first day of class, when you know what all your schedule is for that semester, you're going to write on there all the college classes you're taking, and if you have any work, and then all the other empty, we're going to collect this form. That empty space, that's where we're going to schedule you to fly. Now that first 2 semesters, 90% of it is going to have to be during day. Comes up at 6 a.m., you may be showing up 3:30 in the morning. And yet, you'll be flying on the weekends. Generally, what we do is we collect all these, and we look at the instructor schedule, and we work hard at matching your open times with what the instructor can do. But no matter what, if you start out flying with your instructor and it's mostly during the week, it's bad when the weather gets good. You're probably going to fly during the week, and you're going to fly during the weekends. Because this is a college, and we got to get you finished by the end of the semester. So the flight schedule, on your first day of class, we'll have that all set up, and I'll explain how to do the flight schedule. Usually the system is set up so that it'll send you an email or a text if it changes. Generally speaking, we're going to be publishing the schedule on Friday afternoons by 5 p.m. That is good for 3 days from then, that following Monday, and then for 7 days through Sunday. So when the schedule comes out on Friday, I knew a week ago what I'm doing tomorrow on Saturday. That way you can actually plan for next weekend this Friday. That's the way they did it when I was in the service. Oh, I forgot to tell you. Let's see. Born and raised in Reedley. Learned how to fly at the airport. Airplane mechanic school in this room. and in that lab. My private pilot ground school was in this room from Fred Aerofuku. Got all my pilot certificates and became a flight instructor. Graduated from Ely College's aircraft mechanic in 1980. Couldn't find a job as a flight instructor. No jobs around the Fresno area as a mechanic. Moved to LA, got a job there building helicopters, got laid off. Moved back up here, got a job in Porterville at a helicopter manufacturing company, got laid off. Got rehired back, got laid off. Joined the U.S. military. I was a military mechanic for 2 years. Then the military let me go to college for a year and get a bachelor's degree, and they told me to do it. They let me go to officers school, where I proceeded to graduate at the bottom of my class. And I got to navigator school, where I graduated to the class, so I don't feel so bad. And then I was a navigator and a bombardier on B-52s for my years. I've been a flight instructor in little airplanes. I've flown helicopters and gliders. I fixed little airplanes, little helicopters, medium-sized jets, and then I've taught at 3 different airplane mechanic schools, and I've taught at 4 different colleges that taught pilot classes. The last 8 years before I came here, I ran a contract at 2 different colleges. We had a total of 180 students, and we had 35 flight instructors, and they reported to me. So I have a lot of practice on making sure everything works great. I had a fantastic boss. He thought of his perspective was, do it so they succeed. More students and we will make more money. So let's have a system that works well for the students. Well, I quit my job teaching at an aviation university that was a not-for-profit company. And the very first thing we did was we bought 7 simulators and built them from scratch because nobody in our lab. 7. Of course, in this case, the last job I had, we built 7 because that's how many would fit that we had designated. Here we bought 7 because that's how much money we had. So I have a lot of practice doing this, and I'm not trying to tell you that because I want you to think that I'm wonderful. I want to tell you that because I want you to know that I have a lot of practice, and I've seen terrible ways to do things, and I've worked really hard to make sure that none of those terrible ways get done here. All right, so generally you're going to be able to check that schedule on Friday afternoons. If it changes, you're going to get a phone call or a text. On Friday for the next Monday through Sunday, and if it changed, I got a phone call. Of course, this is before cell phones, and I learned to fly back in the 1980s. The Grecian working pretty well. It's okay if you say no. All right, these are you're going to get a copy of the Flight Operations Manual. It's effectively going to be the rules, in addition to what the FAA says, that you have to follow while you're a student. There are some things you could do that the FAA says is legal that are not safe, and we're going to tell you don't do those, and we're going to be very specific about it. Generally speaking, in the classroom, there's not a policy at Ely College about what you have to wear unless it's obscene. I'd have to go look and read the student code of conduct. I never had a student wear something to class where I had to tell them to go home and change. However, in our simulator sessions and in our flight events, we're going to call it casual business, and effectively, we're going to go for nice jeans or better. And when I say nice, no holes. And casual business is a button-up shirt or a blouse that you would wear to work in an office. If you have questions about that, let me know. If you're going to go flying, it becomes a safety issue. You need to wear closed-toed shoes. They can be $10 tennis shoes, but you can't wear sandals to go flying. In the simulator, there's not much danger of anything hurting your feet, so you can wear sandals to the simulator. But you still need to look business casual. So I'm going to work on getting a better definition of business casual. Flight equipment, the estimates are $670 your first semester. Flight equipment is not covered in the lab fee, covered by VA benefits. That $670 is an estimate. The biggest chunk of this is headset. If you see those fun-looking green ones, those are called David Clark. I recommend there's to get. You can spend $150. You can spend you get David Clark H1030, H10-30. If you have any questions, send me an email. I'll tell you 5 different places to get them. It's a very good one. It has a lifetime guarantee. I have my mother paid for half of it in 1979, and I still use it. I'm on my 3rd microphone. I fixed a couple of wires on it, and I put new seals around the ears. But the rest of the headset still works. That one costs about $325. But it's going to last your entire 2 years, and you could use it another decade or 2 after that. $100 ones, I'll give you some ideas on which 2 brands I think are the best for the buck. If you're really strapped for cash, I can tell you the best $150 headset. You're going to need a logbook. Please refer to me before you go buy one. If you're going to be a professional pilot, you don't want to buy the $4 one. So send me an email, and I'll send you links to 2 or 3 places and say, pick one of these. They're all really good. An E6B computer is going to be about $25. It's a flight computer. It's very specialized. You're going to learn the manual one. You can pick these up for about. So again, send me an email. I'm working on the list. I'm just going to be sending out a document and say, here's the 5 places to get it. And fortunately, Ms. Silva talked about books. I've also the books you need for those flight courses, so you can start working on getting them online. You don't need to buy a purpose-built flight bag. If you have a little backpack that you throw across your back that you can put 3 or 4 good solid books in it, that's okay. Nobody cares. Just to be really clear here, there's some weird things about aviation, and it's sort of the conformist kind of a group. And then in some ways, nobody just really cares a lot about certain things. And whether you have a really nice flight bag that says Joe's Super Deluxe Flight Bag and it's leather and has, gold-plated studs on it, or you've got your 20-year-old backpack you still use from junior high, nobody cares. And nobody cares if you have the $1,200, if you have the $150 headset. Nobody's going to say anything because nobody cares. That's your equipment. You get to decide. So I got all your numbers. In the next week, I'll be sending out a list and say, here's the books you're going to class. Place these. And say, here's 3 $150 ones. Here's a couple of $300 ones, and here's a couple of $1,200 ones. And don't feel bad if you think you need to buy the $150 one now. It doesn't mean you can't buy the $350 one later. All right, the airplane we're going to fly is a PA-38, and the FAA says you can only stuff so much in an airplane, otherwise it's unsafe and it's illegal. So you got to be full of gas. You got to put your flight instructor in there, and then we got to put another human. We call them flight students. Thanks for grinning. I appreciate that. If you're going to weigh more than 220 pounds at any time, you're not going to be able to fly that airplane. If you're getting within 10 pounds, do something about it or come and talk to me. But you need to talk to me before the semester starts because we can put you in a bigger airplane, but it'll cost you more money, and the VA won't cover the extra amount. So you got my email, phone number if you want to talk to me about that. Asking on a separate piece of paper for your emergency contact information. If that ever changes, you'll need to make sure that you keep it up. We already talked about scheduling flight lessons and filling out a non-availability sheet and how the weekly schedule will come out. And don't take any time off during the semester, and don't take a term off. When I say don't take a term off, it's not that the college will say, oh, you can't take a term off, you can't take a semester off. No, you can't do that. The college doesn't have the authority to do that. I'm going to highly recommend that if it's at all possible that you not stop your flying. And in fact, the worst time to stop your flying is between semester 1 and semester 2. That's absolutely worst. You're going to be halfway through your private pilot certificate. The private pilot certificate is the first airplane certificate you earn. It allows you to go flying without an instructor. You can take your friends. You can share the expenses with anybody that you take with you, but you can't get paid, and you can't fly in the clouds. So these are 2 very important things. You want to be able to, as a professional pilot, you're going to want to get paid, and you're going to need to fly in the clouds. But with that first pilot certificate, you can't. It's like getting a driver's license in your car, and you can only take your friends and your family with you. You can't charge any money, and you can only drive a day when you can see at least 4 blocks. You need a certificate to get another certificate to be able to make money. But through that private certificate, semester 1, semester 2, if you spread them out and put no flying in the middle, your as a pilot will go down, will get rusty. And then you wait 4 months and you come back. A certain amount of flying time in each course. That second course has 37 hours in it. If it takes you 10 hours to get all the rust off and get good again, now you really don't have 37 hours to work on that course. You really only have 27. You probably won't pass. So if there's any way to keep going straight through, please, please do, especially those first 2 semesters. If you ever think you need to take a term off, you need to come see me and let's talk about it and talk about the pros and cons, because you're the one that finally decides, not me. I'm talking a lot. Nobody's asking questions right now. That's okay. It doesn't bother me. I get paid to talk. A lot of people that know me say I'm full of it. Hot air, that is. Well, they say I'm full of a lot of other things, but let's keep going. So, I think it's time for another 5-minute break. Let's take a 5-minute break. All right, I'm going to try to go a little faster. So, the flight training system is set up. You got to go to ground school, and you got to get your ground instructor to sign a piece of paper to the FAA. I promise this student learned so much that I'm willing to sign a piece of paper that I promise they can pass the written test. So that ground school's got pretty good, and you have to perform really well. So according to Tony, who's taken a private and a commercial flying test in helicopters, so you've got 3 oral exams because you've had 3 check rides, correct? According to Tony, you got to get them all right. According to Mr. Johnson, if you know one examiner might get a cup of coffee. So either case, worst case scenario is you still got to know answers. Ground school doesn't have to be good enough just so you can pass your written test. That ground school is good enough so you know enough so that you can pass the oral exam. Ground schools in a regular early a 70. Anybody took a college class besides me? That's pretty common, not always. It's common. Ground school, an 84.9 is a D. You got to get an 85.0 to get a C. Because on your ride on the oral exam, you got to get, according to Tony, you got to get 100. According to Mr. Johnson, you got to get a 99. A 98 or so. How's that? A 98 or so. Thank you very much. So, those students that correct the instructor. All right, come up to the front here. Or sit in the back. I can't keep bands all that. You know, I'm kidding. I've never shot a student with a rubber band. Just in case you were wondering. So, ground school's tough. Not to do it. But I've seen, let's put it this way, every student that really wanted to do it found a way to make it happen. And then there were some students that didn't want it that bad. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm just trying to tell you it takes a lot of time. And it's not because the information is physics or calculus or brain surgery. It is not. There's a lot of it, and you have to know different. If you're used to going to college and getting a B by getting an 85, you forget it all after the final exam, that's not going to work. So, ground school, the material is not, you got an IQ of 90 or higher, you're going to be fine. So that's about 70% of the population or so. What you need is perseverance and determination and grit and wanting it bad enough that you will study until you know the answers like this. But in the ground school, you're going to take what's called stage checks. That's what the FAA calls them. In college, you call them written tests. You're probably going to get 4 written tests and a final exam. The final exam will probably be the FAA written test. You can take it I think the price just went up from $150 to $165. The cost sheet that you might have gotten, it just went up to $165. That's another cost the VA doesn't cover. I say the VA doesn't cover it. You can turn in a form and say, look, I spent this, but then pay off a big chunk of your benefits. That 36 months you have, do you want to take a $150 test and have them use up a month of your benefit? Probably not. So I'm slightly inaccurate when I say the VA won't cover that. They will. They'll reimburse, but they use a huge chunk of your 36 months of benefits. So I've never seen anybody do that. So the FA written test, I already covered that. There's going to be an FA written test at the end of the first semester. You're going to take the private pilot written. There's about 700 questions possible, and they give you 60 of them at random. For $40, you can buy a really good cram software that works on your phone. Actually, there's a $10 one that's pretty good that works on your phone, or a really good one that works on a computer. It's $40. All right, simulation. God, I could rant for 3 hours about simulation. This is how important I think it is. I was a professor at Embry University, the university, and maybe for the Chinese, the Civil Aviation Flight University of China. Yeah, because I went there. That's the only university on the planet that's bigger than Embry-Riddle Aeronautic University. I taught at Embry-Riddle Aeronautic University. I was tenured. I was getting paid money. And somebody lured me away, and I quit my job. I could go to work at that flight school because the boss, who I'd known for several years, lunch and said, I want you to read students by 18% per student. And I wrote up a plan, and he said, we'll do it. And we did it, and we spent So I read everything I could about everybody else ever using simulators for flying. More than one way to do it, but the way we're going to do it, which is a very good way, and I've done it for 9 years, is you fly the simulator every day for the first 2 weeks of the semester. You're not going to fly that first 2 weeks. That first 2 weeks, you can still drop the class and owe the college $0. So you're not going to fly and then be able to drop the class and owe the college $0. So for that first of school, the first 5 days that week, and the 5 days, you're going to come in, you're going to really get a simulator lesson every day. So by the time you fly on the Monday or Tuesday of the third week, you'll have already had 10 simulator lessons. So you'll already have an understanding of how to talk on the radio. You'll know that when you're on the ground, turning that wheel doesn't do anything. We're going to actually take off and land out of Fresno Yosemite Airport and practice what it is like to fly out of Fresno. And we're going to practice takeoffs and landings and talking on the radio and how to start the engine and how to taxi and how to check to see if everything's working and a bunch of other things, so that when you get to the aircraft, it's not all brand new. The number one thing that slows people learning down is trying to learn 17 things at once. And in an airplane, you're trying to learn 17 things at once. Has anybody ever taught somebody else to drive a car? Okay. Was overwhelmed on the first driving lesson? So you remember, you were overwhelmed as the instructor? Oh, okay. Yeah, because you're trying to do, I remember, I taught my daughter and one of my sons and my niece, and I did some driving lessons to a friend of mine's son. So I've taught 3.5 people how to drive. Man, that first lesson, there's too much to do. Okay, same thing in an aircraft. So we're going to, in the simulator, you can just concentrate on one thing. You can't crash. It's not noisy. It doesn't vibrate. You only have to do one thing at a time. If you screw up, nobody has to grab the controls from you and make sure you don't do any of those terrible things. And don't worry, they will. There's 2 control wheels in airplanes. Not like a car. Like, pretend you had a car with a steering wheel and pedals in it. That's what it is. 2 sets. That's what it is in a flying machine. In any case, so I won't go into all the details because I'd really spend 2 hours doing that. But all the studies have shown is that if you learn how to do it in the simulator first, when you get to the aircraft, you pick it up faster, so it takes less time to get ready for your check ride. And the number of people who pass their check ride for you is charge you. So So we're going to do a simulator lesson every day those first 10 days, and then after that we're going to just come in once a week and stay ahead of wherever you are at the airport and plane, because we won't cover it all in 10 lessons. We're going to stay ahead, so by the time you catch up in the airplane, you'll have already done it 2 or 3 or 4 times in the simulator. And we're going to do the semester, and then the second semester, we're going to do it again. And then your fourth semester, we're going to do it again. When you work on your instrument rating is where you put on a hood, and all you can see is the gauges, all you can see is the instruments. Instrument rating, we're going to do a lot of simulation in the simulators. All right. The flying lessons, you're going to do them in real flying machines at the Fresno Yosemite Airport. That's going to be you and one instructor, generally speaking. You go in, you have a 10 or 15 minute briefing, you do a visual inspection of the aircraft, make sure there's fuel, you might check the weather, you might check the performance of the aircraft to make sure that it can everything okay. You have that briefing with your instructor and you'll fly. I'm not going to get all the details. You land, taxi, and then you debrief it. So actually about 10 or 15 minutes before you fly is a briefing, 10 or 15 minutes after you fly is a briefing. It varies. The actual flying lesson starts the moment the engine starts over. There's a little meter inside the airplane that when the oil pressure kicks in, the little meter starts spinning around. The little meter, that's what goes in your logbook. A normal flying lesson is between an hour and an hour and a half. Most lessons end up being a 1.1, 1.2, 1.3 hours. But that takes you about 3 hours to do it, because you're going to show up about 30 minutes early. You're going to go out and do the visual inspection on the aircraft, make sure there's fuel in it. So if it's a 2 o'clock flight, you're probably going to show up around 1:30. So then at 2 o'clock, your flight instructor miraculously appears because they just got done with the previous student. You do the pre-flight, you go out to the aircraft. They will do a visual inspection on it, especially at first, to do it correctly. Then you'll go fly. And then they'll get done by 4 o'clock, and at 4 o'clock you'll be done. So you were there for 2.5 hours. Does that sound about right, Tony? I'm pretty close? Okay. You don't need stinking badges. I'm just kidding. You do need badges. Yes. I think it's $75 to get an airport badge. At the Fresno Airport, since there's airliners there, the Department of Homeland Security, known as TSA, Transport Security Administration, has made airports with airlines. Through the gate and you go out on the ramp where the airplanes are parked, either you have to have the airport badge or so the first several flying lessons, the instructor is going to be able to escort you because you don't know how to do a visual inspection of an aircraft. So thank you for bringing that up. I'm going to actually put my list of forms to start giving people. And that's included at $670 estimated. I think it was $75 as of 6 months ago. To get the college will not pay for your airport badge. As long as you don't have too many felonies in your record, you'll be all right. I don't know how many is too many. Instead of written tests in flight, yeah, thanks for laughing. Oh, you're not laughing at me. Okay, fine. You have what are called stage checks. They're like a miniature check ride. And you usually have the first one comes just before you solo. You're going to solo that first semester. You're probably going to solo and rack up 5 hours of flying by yourself by the end of the first semester. So you're going to fly 35 hours, and 30 of it will be with the instructor, and 5 of it will be without the instructor. And then you pass the course, yay. But before you go fly by yourself, your instructor is going to hand you over to somebody else, and that somebody else is going to give you a verbal exam, and that somebody else is going to fly with you and see if they think you're ready to solo the aircraft. It's like getting a second opinion from another. If they say it's okay, then the next flight, you'll probably get on the plane and fly around the traffic pattern at the airport 3 times. If you do everything right, the instructor will log and get out and say, okay, go taxi out and fly 3 times around and come back in and land. And then we'll cut the back of your shirt out and write down the date, or hose you over with the fire hose, or make you buy adult beverages for everybody else. It depends on the flight school. I'm just kidding. I've never seen a flight school where the solo student had to buy adult beverages, but maybe we should no, we can't do that. It's through the college. Never mind. All right. Okay, the check ride. We've already talked a lot about the check ride, so I'm not going to go into that anymore. Flight training activities, I've pretty much done this one. It's going to take So there are going to be some flying lessons where you don't go fly, where you go sit down with your instructor and they verbally quiz you. They give you an oral exam for an hour. Because before you go check ride, they have to sign a piece of paper saying, I promise that this person knows everything about the flying in the aircraft, do all the maneuvers, but I everything in their head and they can pass the oral exam. So they're going to have to verbally evaluate you. They're going to have to orally quiz you enough that they're comfortable to sign that piece of paper. So some of those lessons at the airport with your flight instructor is going to be what we call a ground lesson or a one-on-one. It's not ground school here, but it's with your flight instructor. You just don't go flying. So we talked about a briefing, going for a flight, post-flight briefing, oral exams, studying for the orals. Everybody is different. Some people learn fast, some people learn slow. Problem is you got to figure out what works for you and get to the point where you know 90, some high 90% of the material. Unless you get Tony's exam, and then you got 100%. Did the examiner go to coffee and let you up ever? You would break for lunch. Sweet. And okay. I don't have to ask him. Say no more. Say no more. All right. So we already talked about stage checks and oral exams, so we're not going to go through that stuff. All right. We don't really need to cover classroom activities except the really big points. If you've ever gone to college, hopefully you took lots of notes here. You're going to take even more notes. You're going to ask lots and lots of questions because it's not about whether you can memorize it. It's about whether or not you understand it and then can turn around and apply it. So let's just say this airspace in this, you have to have the ability to be able to fly through it. Let's say you got to be able to see at least 3 miles. So you look at the weather and it says it's 2.5 miles visibility. It doesn't matter if you memorize 3. The question is, can you recognize, oh, I want to fly through that airspace and the visibility is only 2.5. Now I can't fly through it. So that's a really, 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 really simple problem. Most of them are a little more complicated. So you need to ask enough questions in ground school until you understand. There'll be there'll be quizzes, there'll be tests, and of course at home you'll have reading assignments you'll need to study. And I highly recommend study groups, especially if you're not used to being verbally quizzed, getting with 2 or 3 other people and going through your notes and just reading it and asking the questions. So the other people in your group are being verbally evaluated that way, and then somebody else asks a question and somebody else. That way, by the time you're done, you've been verbally evaluated a lot. You need a lot of practice doing that. So my recommendation is 3 times a week for a couple of hours. All right, you want to succeed. Your education as high a priority as you can. 40 hours a week, that's actually really full 12 units of college classes. So if you're taking ground school flying, it won't take 40 hours. But you're going to have to study more for flying classes than you're used to studying for other college classes. Flexible and available. Your instructor is going to give you a lot of hints. When you're doing that debriefing every flight, take notes. Good study habits, do it where it's quiet, do it often and regular, take a lot of breaks, study by yourself. Good for you. And schedule your studying. All right, stay connected. This last one I'm going to spend like 3 minutes on because it's really important. I have worked at a flight school where between those 2 colleges we had 180 flying students at the same time and 35 flight instructors and 2 in another state from where I was. Being heard on all that, and the biggest problem, one of the biggest problems I saw was that students would let themselves get back corner in their private life and not tell their ground instructor and not tell their flight instructor and not tell me, and all of a sudden near the end of the semester they're bombing in ground school and their flight training's going nowhere and they go, oh yeah, I'm in the middle of a divorce, or yeah, I had to leave for the last 2 weekends because I had to go to Nebraska because my dad had a heart attack and I'm thinking about quitting. I can go there and drive the tractor because we got to grow corn or whatever it is in Nebraska. Not that I'm knocking Nebraska and corn. But they didn't tell anybody. And I'm old, and I'm not as stupid as I used to be, and I make mistakes, and I used to. And one of those things that I've learned is that if you tell somebody what's going on, have an additional answer to how to fix it that you did not think of. And this was people that were in their late 20s, early 30s, that had seen combat in foreign countries, and they still had a problem telling somebody else, I got a problem and I'm not sure how to fix it. And I'm not complaining. Yeah, you're grinning because you know somebody like that. I can look in the mirror. I know people too. All right, so I won't go into all of my personal horror stories where I failed to ask somebody, or at least help somebody. So what I'm telling you is that I am always, 100% of the time, you got my cell phone number, you got my office phone number, you got my email. If you don't want to tell me what the problem is, that's okay. You can come to my office or you can call me and say, Mr. Johnson, I got a problem. It's really personal. I don't want to talk about it, but I think it's going to impact my flying, or it's going to impact my ground school. We'll hook you up with a professional on campus to go see to help work through it. Been through a divorce. Had trouble. I've had other issues that I'm not going to go into right now. So you're not the only person that needs to tell somebody. Because what I want to do is I want to help everyone succeed in this program. That is my personal goal. I was really, really lucky. I grew up in a family where we made enough money to flip burgers and spend all of my money on flying lessons. I didn't have to bring my money home and help pay the rent or buy shoes or pay for the doctor bills. I was very fortunate. I was really fortunate. I grew up in a town where there was an airplane mechanic school 2 miles from my house. If you go exactly southeast from here, 2.0 miles, you will find the house I grew up in. And I went to school here. I was ridiculously fortunate. Everybody doesn't live the same life as I did. All right, thanks for letting me rant there. So here's a problem that I see in about 1 out of 20 students. All your documents need to have your same stinking name on it. When you go get your medical certificate, fill out that form so it matches your driver's license. If your driver's license has a middle initial in it, then everything... Let's me back up. Fix your driver's middle name. You go for your check ride, you're going to have a government-issued photo ID that has the exact same name on it that is on your medical certificate, that has the exact same name on it that is on your written test results for your FAA written test. Seems like I'm missing a document. Oh, and your student pilot certificate. It's a form you fill out online so you can solo. Those 4 documents have to have the exact same name on it. In the FAA, you either need a middle name or you need no middle initial, NMI. So if your driver's license or whatever government-issued photo you use, you need to look at it, and if it doesn't have your middle name in there, you need to get it changed. And then when you do all your paperwork, it needs to all have the same exact name on it, because your examiner will sit down, and if one of those documents has a slightly different name by 1 dot or 1 letter, they will say, sorry, I can't give you the check ride. I see this happen about 1 out of every 50 students. So I'm telling you right now. Okay, before the first day of class, get a medical certificate. The great news is a medical certificate, if it's first class, it'll last for 6 months, and then it turns into a second for another 18. At the end of your 2 years now that you've had, since your medical, after 2 years, if you're under 40, it goes all the way out to 60 months. If you're over 40, it goes all the way out to 36 months. So you can get through the whole program and get that first or second, and then it's going to be good the whole program. So if you get it now, you won't be wasting your money. Find that original certificate if that's what you're going to use. If you do use a passport, it has to be valid at the time you show it to your instructor. Apply for financial aid as soon as possible. We've covered that. apply for VA benefits. Ms. Cortez right now is the best person to go see to talk about VA benefits, not just federal financial aid. And I forgot to say it, but if you're going to use VA benefits, apply for federal financial aid. The federal government, through the student federal aid, will hand you $500 of free money. There's a headset and a plotter and a divider and some charts. The worst they can do is say no. Start looking at headsets and get ready to buy one. You're not going to need one until the first day of the third week of school. So January 8 plus 21 days, so that's January 29. So start looking. So if in a couple of days, if I haven't sent you an email about where to go look, send me an email. Hey man, where's those headsets? Have I talked enough in one for one day? So I got one last thing. I wrote this up tonight. If you're using I'm going to give you a solemn pledge right now. I'm going to solemnly pledge that whenever you ask me questions, I will give you the answer to the best of my knowledge. And if I am not confident of the answer, I will tell you I'm not confident of the answer. So I want somebody to ask me, are we going to fly? What? Am I what? On January 8th? It's very likely. But I don't have the exact date. I can say on this date, it's guaranteed. You know, the college president is extremely committed, and the president wants that. If the VA doesn't approve the program, we're only going to have 1 or 2 students in the class. And I don't think the college is going to do that because the college likes to have 10 people in a class. Ask me this is because I want you to have an alternative plan for January ready to go if you don't get to fly this January, because I don't want you to get hosed over. Has anybody ever seen a garden hose? Anybody who's operated a garden hose? Sometimes they're green, they're 25 feet long. Have a couple of people seen before? Okay, so cut off about a 2-foot. Okay. Now, if someone were to pick this up and then beat you with it, you would be getting hosed, right? Thanks for grinning. I appreciate it. I don't want you to get hosed. So I'm telling you emphatically, you need to have a second plan of attack ready for January in case something happens and we don't fly. All right, now the college, there's a VA rule that says if more than 85% of the students in an existing program, if more than 85% are using VA benefits, the next semester you can't let in anybody using VA benefits. And so you can see what would happen here. I think what's going to happen, this is my personal opinion, that 60 or to 80% of the students in this program are going to end up using VA benefits. So let's say 20 students are coming into a class. That means we're going to have 3 or 4 not using VA benefits, and the remaining 16 or 17 are going to use VA benefits. What if we have a semester where we exceed that 85%? The next semester, how many students using VA benefits can come in? None. We're going to have a class of 3 or 4. What's going to happen? The college is going to cancel the class. And what you want to have while you're a student is lots of students behind you, so when you graduate, you can get a job and turn around and teach them. I've done this for a long time. You want plenty of students behind you so there is a job for you. Now, don't get me wrong. There's boatloads of jobs out there for airplane flight instructors. If we sit down in front of a computer, I'll find a place for you to apply at 5 places in 5 minutes. And a couple of them will have signing bonuses. But Okay, so enough about the backstory. So the college has to be very careful about how many students come in that are not using VA benefits versus how many students are using VA benefits. And the college cannot let people in using VA benefits. It's going to end up where we exceed 5% of the students using VA benefits. So we're going to have to limit. And all the colleges around the United States use VA benefits are doing the same thing. People are coming in VA benefits. So in order to keep track of that, you must now fill out this form. You don't have to do it today, but you can. And fill out this form. And go ahead and fill it out even if you don't have a college ID number. You can send me a college ID number in a few days. So I want you to fill it out today, even if you don't have a college ID number. And you need to mark on there, yes, I'm going to use VA benefits, or no, I'm not. And then the college is going to see who signs up not using VA benefits, and then the college is going to decide how many people are going to get in using VA benefits. I'm not saying I like this system. I'm saying this is the system, and it's the best that the college can do. It's the only thing the college can do, and it is driven entirely by federal statute, Title 38, which if you look at Title 38 of the U.S. Code, it's VA benefits. I know because I've read it a lot. You don't have to fill this out today if you want to. That's okay. You can scan it and email it to me. If you want to take it with your phone and text it to me or email it to me, that is also okay. I'm just going to print it out and stick it in a folder. My guess now, if one or two people using non-VA benefits get in, then we'll probably let in 4 to 6 people using VA benefits. That's my guess. All right. I think I've spoken enough. I want to do a really fast tour.